I was born in Groningen, which is in the Netherlands. It's in the northern part of Holland. And the circumstances were we were at war with the Germans. So this was 1941. And really bombs were flying all around us when my mother delivered me. So that was, it should have been such a happy occasion. And yet, to bring a child in a war-torn country would have been very hard. And, during those years, it was the whole, because this was at the beginning of the war, obviously. And so as children, as little children, we couldn't be playing out in the sandbox or playing with a little friend that lived next door because we had to stay home and in the house. So we didn't go to kindergarten or any of those kind of pleasant things because it was just all staying at home. I remember my grandmother came to live with us because her house was bombed. And so when the bombs would fly around, I remember Grandma would just kind of get us and we would sit in the middle of the house and hoping to stay safe. Probably we didn't know any better that there were bombs flying all around us at a young age, like especially towards the end of the war that I was about 4. It was just a kind of a scary thing. I remember the German soldiers, what they looked like. I didn't know they were German because my parents really didn't talk to us. Well, they were bad people. So they were just regular people to us. I remember one day when my childhood was ups and downs. My dad was gone a lot because he was helping people escape from getting them from place to place because they were being sought. They were looking for them. They were the Jewish people, and we kind of lived in a neighborhood that we had a lot of Jewish people living there, and so my dad helped them find safe places for them. So my dad was actually helping with the resistance of the war effort, and so that gave him that I did not know that as a child, but it was dangerous for him to help other people. And so the stories that I've learned from that is that it's good to help other people, that we don't need to be worried about helping others. And my dad lived his whole life like that, always helping other people, not worrying about for what's in it for me, just trying to help people and be good to them. And towards the end of the war, the Canadians came, and we were not close to being liberated. And so I remember they gave us little chocolate bars, or we hadn't seen any chocolates, so with little chocolate bars, and they had little toys that they'd give to the children. And then I think there was one other moment that will always stick in my mind, that there was just outside of our back door, we had, there was kind of a grassy area, and the soldiers would sit there and would have their lunch. Well, we were still really hungry in those days. So as children, we would walk over there and watch those soldiers. And I remember they had large loaves of white bread. And then they had a big can of, we didn't know what it was, but it was a great big can. It was kind of square. And it had they opened it with the key all the way around, and it had corned beef in it. And so they'd slice that corned beef and put it on their sandwiches. And obviously, we all probably looked like little orphans, hungry and ragged. And so they offered us sandwiches, and we ran it to our home and gave one to our parents. And then we ran back and they gave us another one. So that's one personal experience that I really do remember. And then, so it was just good, and we were able to go outside, and we would have flags, and so those were sweet experience. And obviously, everybody was happy that it finally was over after 5 long years. I can't even imagine 5 long years. That was a long time. No money, no food, no heat. Frying a couple of eggs on some books that my dad had to burn up so we could fry those eggs. Those are just some of the things that were hard. So at the end of the war, my dad had been on a list to get killed because of his helping with the Jews. So the resistance they were after him. So this was right before the war ended. And so they were trying to round up all of those people that had been helping. So he was on this list to get killed. And so the soldier, there was a Jeep, my mother said. There was a Jeep that came, 2 soldiers in there. One soldier came to the door, and they just barged right into the house, and my dad was in the back. And so we were just little kids, my brother and I, so there was this man coming to our house, and I remember, because we were just little, he had those brown boots on, and then he had a pair of pants on, those green pants, and we were tugging on his pants while he was trying to find my dad in the house. So he walked through the back, and so he told my dad that he had been on this list, and he had to come with them because he had been helping the Jewish people escape. And we were just kind of bothering the soldier, apparently, and he said to my dad, he looked at my dad looked at us as kids, and so the soldier said, "Do you have a back door? You get out of here, because I have 2 little kids just like that at home, at my house." So I think that was probably one of the probably a major event in my parents' life, obviously. You know, my mother's scared. They had picked up my mother at one point as well to interrogate her about my dad's, what he was doing. And those were all hard things. And it's hard for parents to go through that too. And then to raise your children. I think, well, in hindsight, obviously, I think my parents did a great job trying to keep us safe and do everything they possibly could to feed us. And I think there were thousands and thousands of families just like ours. I think it does some of those big moments have certainly helped me in the rest of my life. I mean, the goodness of people. I mean, I look at some of those German people. So I had probably, because nobody liked the Germans at that point, but some of those things, when I reflect on it now, that I feel like, yeah, there were some really wonderful people. And they were sent, they were a soldier, they were just like we send our soldiers all over the world, you know, with the same circumstances. And we don't know how much good they have done as well, you know, or how many moments they've had to think, can I really pull the trigger here? That's the thing that I have learned mostly from this whole experience of the war. And then after the war, it took years to have things cleaned up. And we were poor, but then everybody was poor. So we did not really recognize that we didn't have enough. But there were times that we didn't have enough to eat. I remember a day that my brother and I, we just had a slice of bread, and my mother was going to eat with us, and we were still hungry. And so she said, well, I'm not very hungry. So she cut her piece of bread and gave the rest of it to us. So those are the things that really stick out in my mind, that I think I've tried to live my life like that. I've not always succeeded, but I think those are the things that really have made an impact on me. And I always wanted to maybe do a little bit better or do a little bit more. And then when I was associated with people that came from another country, like from America, I remember LDS missionaries that came and they talked about their country. And lots of people around me were moving. Right after the war, people moved to Canada, New Zealand, Australia, because there was nothing in Holland for them. And so they moved all over, and I thought someday I might move there too. I had a friend that moved when I was 16, and we were able to go say goodbye to her they moved on a ship. They lived right by me, and then their whole family came to America. And another friend and I that had gone to the boat to say goodbye to them, we decided, you know, we're going to go too. And I was 16, I remember it well. We went to the American Embassy that very day, and we went and got papers and filled them out and got them back to the embassy. And we had to wait several years before our number came up, because, you know, had to get green cards and everything else. So then I had to find a sponsor that would be happy to sponsor us to come. And so I came to this country when I was 19 and a half in 1961. And it was hard because I didn't speak any English. I had to leave school early to help provide for my family. And so it was hard to learn the language. I knew some German, and I had taken some French in school, but that didn't help me much when I came here. So it was hard to find a job and to kind of try to fit in, because even I felt I was always just kind of looked at, she's just a foreigner. And so I had felt like I had to work twice as hard as an American to show that I really was able to work hard and that I was good enough to be here. And so I think I suffered with that for a while, but then when I got the swing of things, American people certainly were different than how I grew up. But I felt like I started fitting in after a while, but always kind of in the back of my mind. Not that I was treated like that, but in the back of my mind, I always felt, well, she's just a foreigner. Some of those moments have also made me who I am today. That we can forgive, move on, and learn something from experiences that we've had and think, boy, I wouldn't wish that on anybody else. Or maybe feel more compassion to them, reaching out more. I think those are the things that I've really learned, to reach out to other people. Sometimes those are moments in your life that you just think, well, those aha moments when someone reminds you of something that I probably have had some times in my life that I felt like I never kind of measured up. I still in the back of my mind, I was still that foreigner that came over at a young age and didn't know anybody, didn't know anything either. I was just excited to be here. But then there's moments in your life that you just think, yeah, I am good enough. And it has taken me a long time to feel like I was good enough. And because somebody reminded me that I was good enough. I don't have very many talents. And, I always kind of wished I had, maybe that I could play the piano really well, or maybe that I could do this really well, or this really well. Somebody reminded me of my talents. And as soon as somebody reminded me of that, I just thought, yeah, that is a talent. I'm going to work on that. And I think, so I've been able to reach out to other people more, and because I'm kind of a people person. And so I can make friends with anybody. I don't care where they came from or where they've been or where they're going or who they are. And I do feel like that is a talent. And I am grateful for that. Not that I don't want to say I'm proud of that, but I'm grateful that I, at an older age, that I was able to recognize that. And somebody actually pointed it out to me. And I feel like that has helped me in my last years or my last half years of my life.
Yeah, recognizing that.
Recognizing that we are really all of God's children. And it doesn't matter who we are or where we are in our journey. I was elated to be a mother. Even as a child, I always grew up that I wanted to be married and have children. And when that little boy, when I was in charge of this little boy, that was pretty amazing. Kind of felt like a co-creator. I did feel like that. But also a heavy responsibility, because now that little child I had to raise to be a good human being. And so it's not as scary when they're just little. You just have to feed them and change them. Then they grow up and they go out in the big world. It was hard to send my first one off to school. because now all of a sudden they were not their mommy's little boy anymore, but it belonged to a whole class of children and a teacher. And so that was kind of hard, my first one, but I loved being a mother. I love being a mother. And then I had 2 more boys, and that was exciting too, to have. I have 3 boys, and they are really wonderful human beings. But it changes your life. Now all of a sudden it wasn't just me that I had to worry about, me and a husband, but it was those children. And you want them to you want them to grow up to be good human beings. And I really felt that responsibility, that I wanted them to be good people, that they cared about other people and be polite and helpful to other people. And that they wanted to help other people. I think I've always been kind of a lot about helping other people. And I wanted my children to grow up like that too, that they cared about the community they lived in. Keep our property clean, and all those kind of things. And then they grow up and they move away and they have different things and they do their own thing. But some of those things I think have really stuck with them because they really are good human beings and care about their own families. They have wonderful wives, and all 3 of my boys have 3 children each, and they're wonderful. And so I think those are the real blessings at this point in my life, that I just think, yeah, that's what it's all about, this family. And so they're growing up and moving away too, and that's good as well.
How long were you raising them by yourself?
When I was alone, my children were 12, 16, and 19. And so those were hard years because they were big boys and teenagers, but they've done well. They were football players, and so that was fun. But there came with challenges. We weren't able to do a lot of things that maybe other families did, but I think my children did well with it. I think they've turned out well, and I think maybe that's perhaps they're really good husbands to their wives. I think maybe I'm just bragging, but I think they really are, and they love their families and they love doing things with their children. And those are some of the things that I have missed as a single parent, that we haven't been able to do as many fun things as maybe that they can do with their children now. But I think they are, overall, I think they are well-adjusted, and they've done just fine with just a single mother.
Yeah. My last question, is we're hitting an hour. My last question is what you gained and what you learned from that experience specifically.
Well, that was whole other thing in your life, obviously, because all of a sudden you find yourself alone, and I had to work hard, and sometimes a couple, do something extra at night and to make some extra money. But to be self-reliant, I think I've learned a lot from that we can do without. You don't have to have everything. And because sometimes we just have fluff things, as long as my children had enough to eat, and they always went dressed to school, and they were well-liked at school. So those were the things maybe that was most concerning to me to start with, but I think they've done really, really well. But so I have a lot of compassion for people that are raising a family by themselves, because I can see that there's heartaches and that it could be really hard. So those are the things that you just learn in the meantime, the compassion and to reaching out to other people. especially now that I just sit, when I see a little family alone, if there's anything that I can do to help them, I would be more inclined to do it because I know how it feels. And that's something that I've learned. I've learned to be able to give compassion without a casserole. I don't need to bring them something. I can reach out to them and say, I don't have any idea what you're going through, but I just need you to know that I care. And I think we need more people like that really just, it's okay if you don't know, but show up. I mean, I think that's one of the things we need to do more of. Show up when somebody is in trouble. Sometimes we don't know what to do, but we can certainly reach out. I feel pretty strong about that. Just show up and do what you can.
What are your hopes for you and for your kids?
I just want them to be good people. I want them to be productive people in whatever they do, whatever they are doing, and make their own mistakes and move on. And they have made mistakes and they have moved on, and they're good people, and that's what my hope is for them and for my grandchildren. And I hope they can look at me as the matriarch of my family, that they think, my mom's worked hard. And we kind of like to grow up to be like them. I think that's what any parent wants to do, that you just think, I've looked all of my life since I've been here, because I've been here alone. I didn't have any family here. So I've looked at other people, and they have had a great influence on my life. Other people, there's been specific people in my life that have made a major difference. But then there's other people, everyday people, that I just think, they're good people. I like to be like that. And I remember telling people, I like to grow up to be just like you. And so now that I'm at a point in my life, so there's some people that will say to me, I'd like to grow up to be just like you. And I just smile at that. But I hope those are the dreams that I have for my own children and my grandchildren. I'd like them to be good, productive people in our society. They don't need to be rich or famous or anything like that, because really we're all contributors, and I'd like them to be like that, a contributor. I'm 84 now, and I don't feel so much fear for me anymore, because I'm probably in the winter of my life. Even though I hope to live, maybe another 10 years. But I fear for my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. I mean, what is it going to be like in another 5 years or 10 years? Because things are moving fast. I mean, the things that have happened just in my lifetime, they are moving fast. And it's going faster all the time, because what has happened in the last 10 or 20 years is just amazing to me. And yet some of those things are wonderful. I really appreciate that I can just look something up. I could read a book on my tablet. I mean, there's some things that are wonderful. I can talk to my family in Holland just from my little iPhone. I can see them. We can talk to each other. So that's a wonderful thing. I wish that would have been there when my mother was still alive, that I could talk to her and see her. Those are wonderful inventions. But some of the things, I feel like we are so used to it now. Kids nowadays, when they can't even talk to each other in school because they're texting each other. I mean, I've seen it happen all the time. They're texting each other while they're sitting in the same room. Try to talk to each other. So those are things that I kind of miss. Or somebody just coming to visit, have a cup of tea or a Coke or whatever, and just sit and chat. We just don't feel we have time for that or room for that. There's some wonderful things that have happened, with the internet, and we can talk to each other on one of those little machines. They get their Google machine out and they can do anything, but they can't talk to each other. And why can't we just really work for peace, all of us? I mean, I think it's up to all of us to live a better life, to be more in tune with each other. I mean, what are our needs? I mean, we don't always have to be right, 100% right. I mean, it's okay for us to just give a little bit. And I don't see that happening. even in this wonderful place that we live in. I mean, I love living here. But even in this wonderful place, we have people that are just totally so involved in things that I just think, I don't know you anymore. And I think that we haven't seen any of that. I haven't seen anything quite this bad in my lifetime.
Even worse than when you're living in...
Yeah, even worse than I was living in Holland. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think it's from a lack of community, or?
Well, maybe communications too, because we don't even communicate. We can hardly talk to each other. I mean, I look at my own grandchildren. I mean, they're wonderful people, but they just text. You know, I still like to pick up the phone and talk to somebody and have a little conversation with them. People are too busy. They can't even come and sit and have a conversation because they're too busy. They have to run someplace else. Instead of just living a little slower paced life. I think we're chasing something nowadays that they have never chased before. And I don't know really what it is. Bigger homes, more things, more toys. I don't know. I don't know what it is. You know, we build houses much bigger and bigger. I think, looking back, we lived in row houses. You know, we all knew each other. We all lived in row houses. Some people lived on the bottom floor, second floor, and the third floor. You all went up the same stairs. And you talked to each other. And you knew if someone was sick, helped each other, shared whatever you had with each other, had conversation. We knew each other as children. We could play outside. I don't see that today, that people are really communicating with each other. They're too busy doing stuff. And I don't know what stuff it is, but it's stuff. Yeah. I mean, I sometimes long for a time that you can play outside all day, send your kids outside, and they're outside all day and playing with each other, talking to each other, loving each other, hating each other, and yet they play together and then come home exhausted at night. They haven't been sitting on a little thing all day, you know.
Maybe so exactly what you said, we're not quite sure what we're running away from, but then I would say maybe we're not quite sure what we're running towards as well. But I love hearing the wisdom, because it sounds like you've maybe discovered a little bit more of that. Maybe I want to hear more about that. It's like, what is the, you know, if you could encapsulate or summarize this hope of uniting people, it's like, what is it that we're running towards? Even if it's, you know, a vague idea, something like love or something simple like that.
I think that's the one thing that running towards something. I think, especially lately, I've thought about a lot of those refugees people, the people that don't have any homes. And we have a lot of them in our area, I mean, in our state. And I think they had to run away from things, from bad situations. And yet, are we, who have been living here for some time, are we ready to embrace them instead of just, I mean, I see some of those people that are here that came here for a better life, because really this was a dream to come to America. And I think it still is a dream. This is the land of hope and opportunity. I mean, when I first saw the Statue of Liberty, I had that very same feeling. Give me your tired and your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. We had thousands and millions of people that came for freedom. And we still have them today. We still have people that run away from, that wanted to be free. And how do we treat them? How do we look at them? They don't have maybe our skin color. Maybe they're from a whole different background than we are, but can we embrace them? Could we be nice to them? Could we help them? Because we have abundance. I am blessed abundantly that I certainly could help someone else along the way. and hope. Those are my hopes and dreams for people to look at. We are all God's children. It doesn't matter our skin color or where we came from or who we serve or who we pray to. I think that would be my hope for the future, that all of us can embrace those people instead of saying, get them out of here. Because they all came for a dream of a better life, a dream to rear their children, and a little bit that they could eat and maybe go to school and be somebody that they could be. I fear for that if we are not changing our attitudes and our minds. I fear that we're on the wrong track with that. I think to start with was obviously that I came as a foreigner, and that was hard for me. I lived with some people and I loved them. It was kind of probably an affluent area. And I just did not feel like I was accepted there. I think they were all nice, but I wasn't one of them. And so I think that was one of the hard parts that I had to overcome. That yes, I did belong. I came here, I had a sponsor, I worked hard, I became a citizen, and I loved it the day I became a citizen because I felt like I belonged. And this probably took me 10 years because I became a citizen in 1971, and I was excited to pledge allegiance to the flag. And I think that still gives me great pride to be an American and to live here in abundance, because I feel like I live in abundance. I'm grateful to have enough to eat every day and to have a roof over my head. And I think that is the American dream, and I feel like I've lived the American dream